The business of higher education really needs to evolve. We put our marketing hat on and we think campaign building and we think pre-build and pre-planned content. Wouldn't it be better if AI actually does all that stuff automatically on the student side on demand?
It's that shift from campaigns towards community building.
What is success going to look like for Element? What is the vision? What does it look like in 2, 3, 4 years' time?
Man, Kevin, it's like 3 years is a long time. Who knows what's going to happen in 3 years?
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Currently, the new video interview show from your friends here at Electric Kite. I'm Kevin. I'm here with my business partner, Lewis. Lewis, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about our conversation today. But first, Kevin, let me ask you, what would you say is the one topic that our client partners have been asking us about the most this past year?
Philadelphia Eagles, Donald Trump's tariff, and AI.
Yeah, you gave me a top three, but yes, I think AI is certainly the one that has been coming up the most consistently. Are we tired of talking about that yet?
Tired of talking about one of them, but not tired of talking about AI. What about you?
Well, it is certainly not going anywhere. Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. So tell me, what is one thing you are doing differently now due to AI that you were not doing a year ago? And what tool are you using to do it?
From a simplistic point of view, I think just doing search, I think conversational search is transforming. I notice how I'm using technology different. And I've done some research. I think Google search for the first time, it dropped out of 90% of actual all searches. So it'll be interesting to see how much something like ChatGPT starts eating into Google. From a work point of view, I use OpenAI ChatGPT for a lot of research where I'm doing research lists on competitors or keywords. I like using it for copy editing. I like to write something, then get ChatGPT to actually copy it. Yeah, those are the sort of things that I'm using for. What about you?
For outside of work, I've been using ChatGPT a lot. I love it for recipes, both for food and cocktails. I'll take a picture of my bar cart and ask for a new cocktail recipe, or take a picture of my refrigerator. That's really helpful. And then during my working day, I've been using Google's Notebook LM for a lot of data analysis. I find that its ability to look at all the trends and come back with very actionable recommendations based on that data is making analysis of a lot of our marketing data, just things that used to take us a week to do, can now be done in a few minutes, which is pretty great.
Cool. Well, we're going to be talking a lot about AI with our guest today because he's the founder of Element451, the higher ed CRM platform that's built around AI.
That's right. And we use a lot of different marketing platforms across our different partners. But I think if you are a college or university, Element451 is definitely worth a look. I think it is one of the best platforms that you can build an enrollment and marketing team around. Not only is it built to support enrollment marketing, but it is intuitive and includes multiple AI tools that let you do way more than you think might be possible.
Yeah, and it's been growing super fast. And congratulations to the whole team. Element has been just secured $175 million investment for growth equity from PSG. So we're looking forward to seeing the next stage of the journey.
That's right. So today's guest is founder and CEO of Element451, the AI-first CRM and student engagement platform. He also co-hosts the Generation AI podcast on the Enrollify network. You may have seen him speak at industry events like AMA, NAGAP, EDUCAUSE, NACAC, and Element's own Engage conference. Welcome, Ardis Kadiu.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. This is great. Great intro.
I tried to make it sound like you're a wrestler coming into the ring. We'll add like the sparklers and people dancing behind you.
That's right. That's right. I need my walk-up song. I'll send it to you afterwards.
Sounds good.
Anyway, Ardis, it's tough out there at the moment for colleges and universities. We're obviously fighting the demographic cliff. It's finally here. Funding shortfalls, political blowback, staff retention, marketing teams carrying a lot of that burden. How would you describe the situation for most schools and what do they need to navigate this moment?
Oh man, Kevin, that's a lot to throw on me right now. In truth, we've been seeing a lot of these different trends kind of converge for a long time now. So it's one of those things where when you ask somebody how did they go bankrupt, or what's the saying, how did you go bankrupt, is like very slowly and then once of a sudden at the end, right? So this idea of higher education having headwinds for a really, really long time, we've seen these things come through. And as a industry, we tend to be a little bit adverse to change. So we're not necessarily planning for that, 5 year, 10 year, just because we've been around for a really, really long time. It's one of the areas where I feel very passionate that we can make really, really great changes. But what's happening is that the consumer is changing drastically, right? And the idea of what you mentioned around, hey, there's all these different forces. There's forces around funding. Funding has been an issue now for a while. State institutions, like the funding there has changed a long time. You have kind of this huge gap in the middle, like for private institutions where they're tuition driven and there's an enrollment cliff that's coming. You have the top institutions that are the Ivy pluses that have the most students that they can ever use ever with their retention rates. So when you look at it, like the business of higher education really needs to evolve, and it needs to evolve around the idea of products and how best they're serving their customer. So this idea that you can think about is like is higher education going through that Dojification, for example? Is higher education essentially going through that whole process? How do you think about it? Like, how do you think about all these different things converging?
That Dojification, part of it, the hurdle, I think, is the culture part that you spoke at the start about in higher ed. Like I've come home to Scotland, and one of the things that's all over the news here is that Dundee University's in trouble. It's got a funding, a 30 million deficit. And part of the thing with the cultures of universities is that this was not happening all of a sudden overnight. Like this had to have been a thing that had been going on for like months, if not years. And to put your hand up culturally and say, okay, we might be in trouble here. How do we change, and how do we make that change? I think that that's something that schools need to actually start grasping, that change process. But how have you found that, Ardis? Have you found schools, open to change or open to taking new technologies?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily just the technology, and as we've kind of talked to my teams, it's really difficult. Implementing technology at a school is not an exercise of implementing technology at a company. It's very, very different. It's a change management process that schools have to go through, and the technology adoption. That's why higher ed is one of the industries where adoption is really, really slow, and then weaning off of older technologies and kind of the retention part on software, and like it's through the roof, right? So when you look at the other industries, you look at retention is like on software is like, well, I don't like this solution, so I'm going to move to another one, I'm going to go to another one. But when you're in higher ed, you're like, no, 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 like once I land, it's kind of a land grab, so to speak. Once I land, I know I'm going to be there for 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And imagine thinking about that. It's like that is like nowhere else do you see that, right? You don't see that anywhere else. So essentially it becomes the software is a way of delivering value, but and change management at the end of the day. So it becomes kind of an agent for making change, and that's very difficult, right? So we're going through that change right now. So institutions have no choice but to go through that change right now with AI, because it's not a matter of just implementing software. It's a matter of how do you revisit and how do you rethink about your institution in the age of AI, when your consumer is demanding different things, when the resources are scarce, and when your people need to be upskilled to kind of meet that demand as well. So the external forces are coming in and pushing towards those institutions. So the change there needs to happen, and it's actually pressuring institutions to make that change a lot faster. So it might be a little bit different with the AI adoption on campuses rather than traditional technology implementations in the past.
Yeah. So, artists, I mean, obviously, there are so many opportunities to optimize a team and to gain efficiencies through AI. But If you're leading a marketing team at a school right now, where are you prioritizing your time and efforts? How do you get a team started on that?
Number one thing would be to just keep upskilling them and start having them use this AI tools. You can certainly start very small and you can start using some of the available chatbots, but then I would also start looking very heavily on how are you improving your students' experience
Mm.
through AI, because that's becoming a differentiator. So the things that you can get your staff to upskill and respond better and give better answers or produce better marketing material or content. But what you said before, Lewis, is like one of the things is like, wouldn't it be better if AI actually does all of that stuff automatically on the student side on demand rather than pre-planned, right? So if you're thinking about marketing, we've operated on the marketing. We put our marketing hat on and we think campaign building and we think pre-build and pre-planned content. And when you do that, it's really difficult to think about all the different permutations or segmentation or personalization on all these different students. And the goal of marketing has always been, how do I deliver the right message to the right student at the right time? And you can't possibly do that at scale for
Mm.
every possible student. So thinking about it, like, how do you get your teams ready? Well, you have to start by giving them better tools so they can do things faster and better, right? To get more output. But ultimately, you're not going to keep up with the output that's needed to personalize things for
Mm.
everybody and 24/7. So you need to employ now AI that is doing that on demand. And that can be on a number of different things, right? It can be around how do you give answers, how do you deliver personalized messaging, how do you deliver, proactively reach out to that student and have a conversation on different channels. So all of those things need to eventually move to a AI assistant agent approach rather than a human doing that work.
So, Ardis, you mentioned humans there. I guess jumping back to the first question, you answered it by, the demographic cliff, the political, the short funding.
Yeah.
It's a change that's happening. So maybe we need to go away and all read Who Moved My Cheese. But then if we're scaling things and it's the people, what do the future marketing teams actually look like? Like what's the people component of these marketing and how would you structure those?
I grew up through marketing and like I cut my teeth in marketing and I did a lot of, I had my own kind of agency or like freelance back in the day building websites when I was in college and even high school, and I was doing print design and all that. So the content or that output is going away, so to speak, right? So you're becoming like one person can do a lot of that. So when you look at now the teams and how the job of that marketer has evolved and what marketing is all about is the orchestration of these tools and systems in order for you to kind of wire them together and think about customer journeys or think about, how do you kind of build these um, messaging stacks on top of each other, and how do you build your sources of content that can be reformed on the fly. So people are like, the job of the marketer today is kind of transforming to maybe that, like, you can talk about it as an engineer, but there's this new term that's essentially really really interesting on the B2B world, which is called the go to market or GTM engineer, go to market engineer. So it's not a matter of like marketing, it's that go to market effort, because it's all about, well, how do I know about the audience and the systems and the operations component? And then how do I go and find the list and find the student as well? So it's all the pieces together. So the people who are going to be very successful in marketing are going to be those who can connect all these workflows together through tools, and they're going to be orchestrators rather than producers of content, right? So that's kind of the change that I see.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like Kevin, I know we've had dozens of conversations about how marketing agencies will have to shift in the age of this as well, and that shift away from like the production of content and the production of work into facilitating the training and implementation of how our partners can actually uh, onboard these processes and tools into their own offices as well.
It is very difficult right now, right? And it's very valuable. It's so valuable because, like, I see it at Element specifically. Like, you throw it in the marketing team or somebody on the marketing team, and it's like they just don't quite get how the different pieces can fit together to produce a full workflow. But as you guys are building an agency as well, like you have that mental model of like, hey, you need this and you need this and you need this, and you're putting those together. And in the real world, like, 5 years ago, maybe even today, you're like, all right, I'm going to put a person here to do this part of it. I'm going to put a person here. And that's how you build the organization, right? Well, now it's like, can you replace those pieces with just having agents, right?
What would you say to the people that are scared about hearing the fact that this will go away? Like the marketers, like what would you say? What would you say to them?
Do I think the jobs are going to go away? No, the jobs are not going to go away. Are the jobs going to be different and they're going to look like today? No, they're not. So if you're doing the same thing a year from now that you're doing today, the likeliness is that there's going to be a lot fewer of those jobs, a year from now. But are there going to be different jobs and they're going to be different requirements and different things that you need to do? 100%. So is the job market going to shrink? I don't know. Like, I don't think so. Like, we need, like, we're hiring people right now. We're hiring all kinds we're hiring marketing people. We're hiring, product managers, account managers. Like, we're hiring a lot of people at Element as we're scaling. But are those people need to do different things and be able to handle accounts differently and how they're approaching it and what the strategy is? And absolutely, it's going to change. And if you're going to want to do the same job, then the prospects of that particular job is going to be
Yeah.
a lot smaller in the future.
When you're talking about all these different systems that come together to help create a end-to-end marketing stack, if you were building a tech stack from scratch right now as the lead, you know, marketing go-to-market engineer, how do you approach balancing all the options that are available while addressing the core needs of not only your marketing team, but you mentioned the needs of the students as well, and how it needs to integrate with some of the existing platforms and legacy platforms that probably aren't going to go anywhere anytime soon.
If you're looking at software in the world of B2B businesses, or even kind of when you're looking at large companies like Salesforce, and when you're looking at Microsoft, and so all of these, or Amazon, all these service providers, software providers, ServiceNow, all of these different tools, you're seeing that their SaaS platforms, but they're very, very quickly changing their platforming to become agentic platforms, meaning that they're changing their how they're thinking about delivering value to their customer. So they're thinking about, we need to change from a seat, a license that you have in terms of in terms of delivering the value, to a outcome based approach, right? So we're solving a problem for you, and that can be a conversion, that can be a conversation that's being handled with a customer, that can be a workflow that is completed successfully, that can be a transcript that's processed success. So essentially, it's changing the model from kind of, you have a license seat and then we charge you for that every single month. You don't get any value out of it. So it's moving towards more this agentic world. Now, that's the pressure that's on software companies. And the other pressure, it's the idea that software can be built a lot faster and cheaper now, right? So if it would have taken you 5 years to build something, a few years ago, now it's becoming a lot faster and cheaper. Look at an example like Klarna. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Klarna, which is the buy now, pay later service provider, and they're able to kick out Salesforce, they're able to kick out Workday as their systems, and they built a lot of their internal systems from scratch internally just to fit their need with AI. Now they're unique, but there's a trend there, right? There's a trend when you're thinking about as a service provider, software provider, like where is the value to the customer coming from? So as you look at the individual schools and the stacks that they need internally, they have to think really, really hard around like where the data is and where the moat is and what's the platform play. So consolidation becomes a real thing now. You can't have seats for 10 different services. Like you either kick those software out and then you move to a, hey, are you delivering value to me? And then how do we measure that? And then you consolidate that into the same kind of platform. So that's the area where that's what we're seeing in industry. That's what we're seeing externally as well with B2B. And it's happening also in higher education. It's a lot easier. Of course, the old adage is like one throat to choke kind of approach, right? You don't need many. So it's like you just need one throat to choke, so to speak. So the consolidation is really good for everybody, but it's also becoming great right now because the value to the customer is on building on top of their data sources, on top of their moats, and then building different value on top of that. So, from going back to your question is like, how do the people think about their technology stacks? Well, yeah, in the past, we were able to connect a lot of different pieces together with Zapier and all these different things as marketers. Is that being consolidated? Absolutely. Like it's going away. So you're not going to be able to have like 10 different SaaS products that are doing the same thing. But it's going to come back to the data layer, right? So now instead of having a SaaS product, you're going to perhaps have an agent that is going to connect to your system of record and then do the same kind of value of work. So that's kind of the approach that you need to start thinking is like, do you have a great foundation that you can bring all your data into it and be a system of, well, you can call it a system of record, but you can call it a great foundational layer. And then what kind of platforms do you build on top that are agentic, that are helping out with that student interaction, that are helping out with, building other kind of workflows internally for yourself, but they're plugging into that data ecosystem.
Ardis, who do you think's best qualified to make that decision within a university about the consolidation?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it's a tough call because I think the better decision maker is the one that's closest to the student, right? Because they're the ones who have to deal with, or they're the ones who understand the pain the most.
Mhm.
However, that's not how governance is done in higher ed, right? Right, especially around technology. So we have this dichotomy of like, well, the business owner really knows best, and in the past, certain products or certain point solutions have won, and you see a great proliferation of that because they are easily adopted by that business owner, and they're like, oh, this is solving my problem right now here. And then you have this dichotomy of the IT teams making decisions for the whole school or whole institution. So, like, is there going to be a model where the two are going to have to meet in the middle? I don't know, to be honest. I don't know how we're going to get there. But the marketing team touches a lot of different areas, right? And it's not just about prospective students. They're doing a lot of different things around the campus. So is it an area where marketing is going to own a lot of this tech stack? To be honest, I don't think so. I don't think the marketing team is probably going to be the one who is relegated, at least on the institutions themselves, because they're going to be relegated to just operators, so to speak. I'm not sure they're going to be able to make huge decisions around platforms that they're bringing in. So it's really going to be the people who are closest to the student, which is their enrollment, which is student success leaders, and they're going to push their IT teams to come to the table and say, hey, let's kind of make these decisions together. And then marketing is just going to have to build on top of that. But that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, I just want to go back one other thing that you said. You said that the cost of creating software is going down. What's driving
Hmm.
that? And what's the experience going to be like for the user? Like, are we just going to see rapid changes in products, or more products coming onto the scene way faster? Like, what is actually driving that
Yeah.
reduction in code? Is it AI itself writing code?
It is AI, yes. That's absolutely 100%. So you can now produce, code a lot faster than ever before. You heard from, you hear it from Amazon or from other places where 80%, 90% of their teams are using and writing code. 50% of their code is sometimes written by AI or even more. And we're seeing that today where you can have an agentic piece of software that's building code, and Anthropic actually so there's a whole bunch of them. Anthropic just released the other day, their code agents, right? And now it can go through your code base, and it can read everything, and then it can write new features for you, and so on and so forth. So there you have Cursor on the other hand, which is a IDE development that's basically doing the same thing. So you also have the no code, low code tools like Lovable. Lovable is an amazing, like it's been growing really really fast over the just literally like just months. It's growing really fast. You have other tools like Replit, and so all of these AI code generation tools, they're actually being able to produce product. The um, but that's on it's a little bit on the consumer side, right? So you have more developers who are building larger systems that are using these LLMs to actually produce amazing code, and they're really 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 good at this code. So that's the cost that's going down, right? Tremendously going down. They're able to build things faster and faster. The issue that I see there is the institutions themselves are not going to be the ones that are going to build their own products, and because you need product managers, people who know the domain, know how to orchestrate these things. And so again, we come back to the orchestrator, right? It's like agencies still now can turn themselves into bespoke tool and SaaS product companies, right? Because that's what you do. You build a campaign or you build something for a customer. It's unique to that customer, but you don't need to hire a team of 50 engineers to do that anymore. You can just build it once. You know the domain, you know how it works, and then you can deliver it. And that's done. But institutions don't have that expertise internally, right? They don't have that orchestration. So even if they build something, they're just not going to maintain it. So the software provider is not going to go anywhere, right? Because our value proposition is not that we're delivering you a piece of software today. It's how is that evolving over time? What's the security look like? What's the evolution look like? How's your data being managed? Like all of the different layers that kind of wrap around that screen or the UI that you're seeing in front of you.
No, totally. So if you build that product or service, then you have to go to market. And of course, one of the go to markets is creating original content. We publish Volt EDU. You bought Enrollify with original content and content marketing. How do you see that original content being used to amplify your product or engage the community?
So the go to market is really important, right? And it's like it's not a matter of like producing software. It's just like you said, how do you create additional value, and then how do you bring in the customer to understand like what you're trying to do and build that community and so on and so forth. We bought Enrollify because we've been great supporters of it since the beginning, and we really liked the platform, and podcasting had become a way for kind of putting ideas out there and becoming more and more popular. You saw what happened. It was called what was called the podcast. the
Yeah.
podcast president or the podcast election in last year.
Right.
So it's becoming more and more about getting around the traditional media. So having your own platform is really super important in order to kind of build out your reach. Can you build it as part of your own brand? Absolutely. But does it become? Um, you know, can you build this media brands that are key to talking about specific, vertical areas, right, and expertise? That's the answer is yes. So it's helped us tremendously from a not necessarily just like as a customer finding customers or leads. That's not necessarily the main reason, right? Like we're not generating that from there. What Enrollify has helped us is in maybe telling our story a little bit more in the market, but also bringing in people and amplifying voices and amplifying kind of messaging that we feel is important. So that educational component on bringing along the customer or the consumer. So it's not a lead gen per se. It's more of a how can we bring along everybody?
It's that shift from campaigns towards community building, which I think
Correct.
is the most successful kind of marketing anyways. How do you get more people in the boat with you and focus on, yeah, not sales pitches, but that value and the world that you want to bring forward.
Thanks, Louis. I spent 5 minutes actually talking, just
I
going
got your back,
myself
Ardis.
in circles, and then you just yeah, man, you guys are marketers, of course. You get it.
We have the same problem with Volt and Electric Kite, the agency. How easy do you find to connect both brands?
It's not very easy, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and that's the thing that I thought it was going to be a lot easier, and the people were going to be like, "Oh yeah, of course, it's Enrollify by Element," and I make the connection there, and I get it. It turns out that it's a lot harder to make the connection around the business part of it. It's easier to make the connection around people
Yeah.
and authors and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like folks who are or kind of personal brands. Let's put it that way. Personal brands is
Yeah.
a lot easier. So Enrollify has also become a place where for us it's like people come in and we give them a platform and now they build their personal brand and they can take that and they can go in other places and still say, oh, okay, this is my personal brand. So for us, Enrollify has become a kind of a place for people to come in and listen to interesting ideas and how we move that to the market. But it's also a collection of individual contributors, individual producers and authors and creators. We call them creators that are building their own little platforms. So at the end of the day, if they're successful in pushing out their messaging and their platform and how they think about the world, that has some rubbing effect on Element, and that's good, right? So if they educate the consumer, then it's good for us because we don't care. Like we're building the best product, so we know we're going to win on that part of it as long as the consumer and the customer is able to understand, kind of the worldview.
What is success going to look like for Element? Like you've got this massive investment now. What is the vision? What does it look like in 2, 3, 4 years' time?
Man, Kevin, it's like 3 years is a long time. Um,
Well, we're all out of jobs. Anyway.
who knows what's going to happen in 3 years?
Yeah.
The plan or what we're betting on is the idea that again institutions are going to need to do a lot more with less to provide that student experience. So
Yeah.
what we're betting on is the doge effect that is going to penetrate higher education over the next few years, and it's been happening now. So resources are getting constrained, consumer demands more of you. How do you make those meet? Well, AI and a platform like Element is the doge proofing your institution because now you're able to to provide their customer the experience that they need at lower cost while reducing footprint and complexity and cost as well. So that's what we're betting on. And AI is really the engine and the driver for how we see delivering that value. That's why we're betting tremendously on our agentic kind of layer, our Bolt AI, which is our AI engine in Element, and it's going to be across the whole student life cycle. So what it looks like in 3 years is that you come to your website and Element is there. You graduate and you receive messages and you talk to, you receive phone calls from your institution or WhatsApp messages or whatever. And that's Element that's doing those. So all the way from the top when you're starting school all the way to when you're graduating, Element is kind of the platform that holds all of those interactions and all of that data, and it's able to communicate and reach out to wherever you are in that journey.
To win that, Ardis, you're betting on the data layer, though, aren't you? Because it's all these
We are.
AI tools around it. But actually, to win, you have to be the CRM, and you've got some big
Correct.
competition, I read.
That's right. Yeah. So the data layer is so important, right? And we believe that we're the unified platform to have all those. That's why we're moving really fast, and we're building solutions in student success. We're building solutions um, in our continuing education and obviously marketing and enrollment and all of that we already have. But and then moving into the alumni space as well with kind of engagements. And so we want to be like the school should have all their data layer in CRM in Element. So that's the moat that we feel we have right now. Is Salesforce going to come in and say, "Hey guys, we're going to take away this"? They're trying, right? They're trying with Agentforce, right? That's what they're. But guess what? What's going to win is not the horizontal software play. The horizontal play is like, think about it like Lego bricks. It's like you get a box of Lego bricks, and that's Salesforce, or that's ServiceNow, or that's these platforms that are building for every industry. And like you have to put it all together, and you have to have those go-to-market engineers in order to do that, right? So that's the idea here, the marketing teams and whoever. So if you have that, amazing. So if you're SNHU, or if you're Liberty, or if you're like one of the for-profits or WGU or whatever, like that's great for you. You can do a lot of that because that's how you're geared. But if you want to deliver the same value, the vertical solution built specifically for higher education, that we know all the workflows, we have all of the things pre-built 98%, and you just configure them for your own institution, like that is going to that's going to win because it's about delivering the value. So that's how we see the world, but we're actually betting on that, and we're seeing it in other industries as well.
Well, cool, Ardis. Thank you so much. This was a fascinating conversation.
All right,
I
guys.
appreciate it. Yeah, best of luck. I wish you another great year. Hopefully, it's as good as this last year.
We appreciate it. Yeah, we appreciate your partnership, and we should do more of these things together.